What if we discovered that the kind, friendly neighbor next door was actually a wanted criminal, someone the police had been searching for over several decades? That was exactly the shock that residents of Los Angeles experienced in July 2010, when news broke that Lonnie David Franklin, the familiar sanitation worker in the neighborhood, had been arrested. So what really happened? How did this man hiding behind the image of a municipal worker manage to evade law enforcement for so long? You're watching The Case on our channel. As always, don't forget to leave a like to support our creative team. If this is our first time meeting, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on our most fascinating true crime stories. In the 1970s, 1980s, a serious crime wave swept through most major cities. New York had the notorious Son of Sam, Los Angeles had the Hillside Strangler, and Illinois was terrorized by John Wayne Gacy. Serial killers seemed to be lurking everywhere, and America was gripped by fear. According to LA Weekly, during this period, over 50 black women in South Los Angeles were found murdered under mysterious circumstances. Even today, authorities haven't been able to bring all the responsible parties to justice. It remains one of the darkest chapters in the city's criminal history. Amid this grim period, Lonnie Franklin Jr., later dubbed the Grim Sleeper, began a violent spree that stretched over 25 years. He was born on August 30th, 1952, and raised in South Los Angeles. Little is known about Lonnie's childhood. It's said he suffered from migraines, which affected his performance in school. At the age of 7, his father taught him how to drive. That was when Lonnie discovered his lifelong passion: cars. He became skilled at fixing cars and eventually pursued a career as a mechanic. Contrary to the stereotypical image of a violent offender, Lonnie was actually charming. He was friendly, sociable, and had a way with women. However, when Lonnie was 16, he was arrested for stealing a car. This incident made his father more cautious about his son's behavior, and he suggested Lonnie enlist in the military, believing it would help him become more disciplined. Lonnie followed his father's advice. By the age of 21 in April 1974, Lonnie was stationed in Stuttgart, Germany, a city near the Swiss border and about 3 hours west of Munich. On the night of April 17, 1974, Lonnie and a few fellow soldiers were cruising around town in a car. Around 12:30 a.m., they noticed a young woman walking alone heading toward the train station. Her name was Ingrid, just 17 years old. She had just left her boyfriend's home and was on her way back. Lonnie and his group pulled over and offered her a ride. "Hey, do you need a lift?" they asked. Ingrid, perhaps feeling they were trustworthy, accepted. But the moment she got inside the car, things took a terrifying turn. Lonnie and his two companions restrained Ingrid and sped away. They drove to a secluded area where no one was likely to notice. What happened next was deeply traumatic. While she was trapped in that awful situation, Ingrid noticed flashes of light like someone was taking pictures with a Polaroid camera. Afterward, they drove Ingrid back to the train station. But this 17-year-old was far more clever than they expected. Before getting out of the car, she pretended to be interested in Lonnie and hinted that she wanted to see him again. Believing her, Lonnie gave her his name and phone number. With that, Ingrid had everything she needed. She now knew the men who attacked her were American soldiers, and she had one of their names, Lonnie Franklin, along with a phone number. She went straight to the hospital, then contacted the police. Following instructions from the German authorities, she called Lonnie and arranged to meet him at the train station on May 6th. Lonnie was thrilled. He truly believed this girl liked him and was eager for their date. But what he didn't know was that Ingrid had a plan. As he approached her standing in the middle of the station, police officers jumped out from hiding spots and arrested him on the spot. The others involved were taken into custody shortly after. They were all taken to court. Lonnie received a sentence of 3 years and 4 months in prison. But strangely, he didn't end up serving his full sentence. In fact, Lonnie was released within the first year, and to this day no one knows exactly why. After his release, Lonnie was discharged from the military naturally. He returned to Los Angeles and moved back in with his parents. But the Lonnie who came home wasn't the same person as before. He drifted from one job to another, no longer passionate about working on cars. Eventually, he took a job with the city sanitation department as a garbage collector. Still, Lonnie maintained his charming public image. People in the neighborhood spoke highly of him, even referring to him as a pillar of the community. He'd offer help fixing cars, lend money, or check in on neighbors. When someone needed a hand, Lonnie was the guy to call. People described him as generous, kind, and friendly. Some even said the neighborhood felt safer with him around. But no one knew what lurked behind that pleasant face. Lonnie had a fascination with inappropriate images and kept a secret collection hidden inside the glove compartment of his orange Ford Pinto. Still, his reputation was so well crafted that anyone who stumbled upon it would just laugh it off. Oh, that's just Lonnie being a little naughty. And thanks to the role of the charming guy that he played so well for many years, even now no one knows for sure just how many victims might have fallen into Lonnie's trap. It all began on August 10, 1985. Deborah Jackson, a 29-year-old woman, was found in an alley just 10 minutes from Lonnie's house. She had been shot 3 times in the back. Investigators determined the bullets came from a .25 caliber handgun. Someone had placed trash bags over her, seemingly trying to cover up the crime. Then came Henrietta Wright, 35 years old. Her body was discovered in an alley in 1986, wrapped in a mattress. Again, the same .25 caliber weapon had been used. On January 10, 1987, 23-year-old Barbara Ware was found in another alley just 15 minutes from Lonnie's home. In this case, she was discovered shortly after her death, thanks to an anonymous call to 911. The caller reported seeing someone dump her body into a trash bin. What made this especially frustrating, and something that even the police later admitted, was how poorly the investigation was handled. The tipster had mentioned a suspicious pickup truck. The police traced the truck to a local church but didn't bother questioning anyone inside. They also failed to collect any meaningful evidence from the vehicle. Just like that, a major opportunity to stop the crime slipped through their fingers. Lonnie struck again that same year, taking the lives of 2 more women, Bernita Sparks and Mary Lowe, both 26 years old. Just like before, they were found in alleys or dumped in trash bins, treated like garbage. In 1988, he claimed 2 more victims. One was Larica Jefferson, 22 years old, discovered on January 30th with a single bullet wound to the chest. A napkin had been placed over her face, and someone had written one word on it: AIDS. The last known victim from the 1980s was Alicia Alexander, just 18 years old. She too had been shot and found without clothing, hidden beneath a mattress. The Los Angeles Times eventually published a map showing where each of these victims had been discovered. It was obvious, painfully obvious, that all the locations were clustered within a few square miles. Every one of them had been left in alleys or trash bins, shot with the same kind of ammunition, and often hidden under a mattress. And yet somehow police failed to connect the dots. It was all there, right in front of them, and that was it. As a garbage collector, Lonnie knew the city's backstreets better than most. He knew where the bins were, where no one would look. And tragically, he treated his victims like waste. Besides Ingrid in Germany, there was also Enietra Washington, the one woman who survived and lived to tell her story. Enietra recalled that one night in 1988, she was walking to a friend's house when Lonnie pulled up and offered her a ride. He spoke in a friendly, casual tone. "You know, it's pretty late already. I could give you a ride." At first, Enietra politely declined the offer, but the man wouldn't leave. Instead, he started getting irritated that she didn't accept the ride. He even shouted, "That's the problem with black women like you. People try to be nice to you and you don't appreciate it." Hearing that, Enietra said she felt guilty, as if she had wronged someone who was just trying to be kind. So she apologized. Eventually, she changed her mind and accepted the ride. But once she got into the car, the man started driving in the opposite direction from her home. He claimed he needed to stop by his uncle's house to pick up some money first. He pulled up to a house on a nearby street, parked the car, and left her waiting alone inside for around 10 minutes. When he returned, Enietra could immediately tell that something about him had changed. He looked agitated and angry, but she had no idea why. Then he accidentally called her by another woman's name. Enietra corrected him. "That's not my name." Silence followed, and suddenly Enietra noticed blood seeping from her chest. Panic took over. She asked him why he shot her and begged him to take her to the hospital. But of course he refused. Desperate, she shouted, "If I die, I'll haunt you forever." Everything around her started to fade. She was losing consciousness from the blood loss. Yet somehow she was still aware of him climbing over her and doing something deeply violating. Sometime later, Enietra saw flashing lights and heard the engine roar to life again. That's when she realized he was dumping her body by the roadside. But with unimaginable strength, she crawled all the way to her friend's house and called for help. Police arrived and took her statement. She gave a clear description of the car of the man who shot her, and even of the wound from the .25 caliber bullet. But officers claimed it was hard to identify him. He didn't have any standout features. He looked like an average guy, just like any other man. Still, word spread quickly that Enietra had survived. The news shook Lonnie. Fearing exposure, he went silent for a while, but then a year later he did something no one expected. He showed up at Enietra's house. When Lonnie had left her bleeding on the side of the road, he took her wallet with him. From her ID, he knew exactly where she lived. The day he came, Inietra happened to be outside. He approached her and asked, "Do you know who I am?" She didn't recognize him right away. And just like that, Lonnie turned around and walked away just as quickly as he had come. That moment left Inietra deeply shaken. She suddenly realized this was the man who had attacked her. But she was also terrified he had come back boldly, showing his face in front of her. She couldn't help but wonder what would have happened if she had said, "I recognize you." At this point, the black community could no longer stay silent. People began to ask why had so many women lost their lives unjustly, and yet no suspect had ever been caught. Despite mounting evidence, the police investigation was going nowhere. Margaret Prescott, founder of the Black Coalition Fighting Back Serial Murders, noticed that law enforcement didn't seem to care much about what was happening. In 2016, she spoke about it on NPR, the national public radio station. She said, "We went down to Parker Center to inquire about the cases, what had been done, and how the community was informed. The officer told us, 'Why do you care? He's only targeting prostitutes.' That to me explained everything. It revealed why Lonnie had managed to avoid capture for so long. So together with other local members, Margaret started her own grassroots group without police support. In truth, they were the ones who kept the pressure alive. They passed out flyers, spoke with residents on the street, and held authorities accountable. Perhaps thanks to their relentless efforts during the 1990s and early 2000s, the killings seemed to stop. Lonnie went silent for almost 15 years. By the early 2000s, forensic technology had evolved. DNA testing had become a powerful new tool for solving old unsolved cases. When investigators started running DNA tests on cold cases, they realized how severely they had underestimated what was happening. The DNA tests revealed two shocking truths. First, many of the murders were linked to the same person. And second, the killer had never stopped. He was still out there. Then, in early 2007, another tragedy shook the community. The body of 25-year-old Janisha Peters was discovered in a dumpster. She had been wrapped in a large black trash bag and left without clothing. Not long before, Janisha had called her mother, excited to share that she had found a new place to live. That was the last time anyone heard from her. When local news outlets reported on Janisha's death, it immediately raised alarm bells. The method matched several old cases. Could it be that the killer had taken countless lives, paused for years, and now returned? The public grew anxious. They gave this unknown murderer a chilling name: Grim Sleeper. Finally, in 2010, the state of California approved the use of familial DNA testing to determine whether DNA collected from cold cases could be linked to profiles already in the system. The results immediately pointed to a man named Christopher Franklin. He turned out to be the son of Lonnie Franklin. Christopher's DNA had been entered into the system after he was arrested for a weapons charge in 2009, and from the son's DNA, detectives were led straight to the prime suspect, Lonnie. But since Lonnie was a well-liked figure in the neighborhood, and because this was the first time the police had used familial DNA testing, they needed to proceed carefully. For weeks, they discreetly monitored Lonnie's behavior, watching for anything suspicious. They also needed to collect DNA from Lonnie himself to verify whether it matched evidence from the victims. Then came the turning point in the case. One day, Lonnie stopped at a pizza place for a meal. After he left the restaurant, detectives swooped in and collected his discarded pizza crusts and napkins. They rushed the items to the lab for testing. This time there was no mistake. The DNA was a 100% match. Just 2 hours later, police showed up at Lonnie's home and arrested him on suspicion of murder. It had taken 25 years, yes, 25 years, for investigators to finally bring an end to the reign of terror carried out by a man who had lived quietly among them as a city worker. When officers searched Lonnie's home, they discovered two shocking pieces of evidence. First, a .25 caliber handgun, and second, hundreds of photographs of women, some of whom were believed to be victims in unsolved murder cases. Among them was a photo of Inietra Washington, the very woman who had given police a description years earlier. At that point, detectives had a chilling realization. Who were all these women in the photos? And more importantly, were they all victims of Lonnie? If the answer was yes, then just imagine his victim count could be as high as 180. However, to this day, police have only found enough concrete evidence to charge Lonnie in 10 murders. The remaining cases either occurred at times when forensic technology was limited or were simply mishandled due to police negligence. To officially convict him, prosecutors relied heavily on the use of familial DNA, a method that was still new and controversial at the time. As a result, Lonnie sat in jail for 4 years before ever facing a full trial. It wasn't until 2014 that a California judge officially ruled that the DNA recovered from Lonnie's pizza crust could be used as admissible evidence in court. With that decision, the legal proceedings could finally move forward. By then, only 2 women had survived the horrifying attacks attributed to Lonnie. Both were called to testify. Among them was Anietra, the woman who had once asked him for a ride, and Ingrid, a young German woman who had survived an attack decades earlier. Police contacted Ingrid and asked her to fly to Los Angeles to testify. Thankfully, she agreed. On August 11, 2016, Lonnie David Franklin, once known as a quiet sanitation worker, stood trial in Los Angeles. Prosecutors accused him of murdering at least 10 women and hiding those crimes for over 2 decades. Presiding Judge Kathleen Kennedy read the names of the 10 victims one by one. After each name, she looked directly at Lonnie and said, "You shall be sentenced to death." When the list was finished, she formally handed down the death sentence to the 63-year-old defendant. "In my years on the bench," she said, "I've never encountered someone who committed such heartless acts in such a calculated manner." Lonnie showed no visible emotion. The trial ended with the harshest penalty under California law, death by lethal injection. It marked the conclusion of one of the longest and most haunting serial killer cases in the state's history. But just a year later, on March 28, 2020, Lonnie was found dead in his prison cell at San Quentin. The cause of death was never officially determined. Fellow inmates said there were no signs of injury or self-harm. As the COVID-19 pandemic had just begun, some whispered, could this virus have been sent by fate to bring justice where the law had waited too long? Even with overwhelming evidence, victim testimonies, DNA disturbing photographs, and the weapon, there were still those who refused to believe the verdict. Many of Lonnie's neighbors and friends couldn't reconcile the man they knew with the monster described in court. They truly believed he was a kind, decent person. It's hard to believe, right? But that's the chilling reality. With just a gentle smile and a quiet demeanor, Lonnie was able to carry out crimes for 25 years right under everyone's noses. No one suspected a thing. In most criminal cases, it's the parent who's heartbroken by the child's crime. But in the Grim Sleeper's case, it's hard to say who suffered more, the father or the son. After his 2009 arrest, Lonnie's son faded from the public eye. We can only hope that the tragedy ends with him and that he's found a path away from the darkness his father embraced. So what do you think about this long, twisted journey to justice? Let us know in the comments below. If this story made an impression on you, give us a like to support the channel. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss our most shocking crime stories. Until next time, stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Until next time, stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Until next time, stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Until next time, stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Until next time.